your food gets processed to be delivered to you, and how the responsibility for this is concentrated in very few companies. Maybe a couple of dozen companies get most of our food to us, and this is something of a problem because we only want things to be too big. We haven't heard about too big to fail with these guys, but they do big things and they do big bad things, and there have been huge fines labeled against some companies, and some executives have gone to jail, mostly for things like price fixing. So my model for the process of how you get your food is in this handout that everybody should have. It's a chart. It's got 5 columns. First column is seed producers. It lists 7 companies, and it claims that they have 65 to 70% of the worldwide seed market. The next column is pesticide producers. It lists 6 companies. They have 75% of the pesticide business worldwide, and 5 of them are also seed producers. The middle column, the third column, is fertilizer companies. It lists 8. It claims they have 75% of the fertilizer market worldwide. The fourth column is processing and trade. These 4 companies are not usually so much in the public eye, but they get the food from the growers to the food companies that package them up into many, many brands apparently, but the 10 companies listed here account for probably more than half of the different various products and flavors in your store. Now, we talked a little about big is bad, and I live diagonally across the street from a Lucky supermarket, and I wander up and down the aisles, and I think to myself quite a bit that if I was to eat most of this stuff on the aisles, it wouldn't be too good for me. It has too much sugar, too much salt, too much fat, too much preservatives. Now, one of the reactions to big food is a growing interest in organic foods and the idea that you should be pretty close to the source of the food. The food shouldn't have to travel too far, and somehow you're a little better connected to the people that are producing your food. I want to go back to 1985. William Nelson organized the first Farm Aid concert. It was supposed to be a benefit concert, and some famous musicians contributed their time. The first one in 1985, they had 85,000 people attend. They gathered quite a bit of money, but the money was nothing compared to the focus they were able to put on the problem that a lot of farmers are squeezed out of the farming market every year, and the farms get bigger and more corporate every year. Now I want to talk about a couple of problems, which is kind of a warm-up to probably the biggest controversy I'm aware of in the food market, which is genetically modified foods. The first problem that I'll introduce it with is we've had experience with fertilizer. That fertilizer causes a lot of damage, and the damage can be very far from where the fertilizer is placed. There are dead zones in the ocean where there's not enough oxygen because algae blooms because it grows in the fertilizer. And these same problems are in our lakes and streams, a little closer to home. Fish that we really like trout, are being displaced by carp, which is okay, but it's not quite as good as trout. A lot of animals are suffering and plants. The second problem that's kind of warming up to the problems that can be with big agriculture is pesticides. We're still being poisoned by DDT. DDT was outlawed in this country in 1972. So not only problems can be spread far and wide, they can last a long time. And that's probably what's on our mind when we begin to think about this controversy of genetically modified foods. It's become possible to splice in genes mechanically with using a lot of robots instead of improving the crops by natural selection, which takes a lot of time and energy, so that we can now change the food about 20 times as fast as we used to. We've been changing food for 8,000 years, and the apples that are in the store right now and you've known all your life are quite a bit different from the apples that the legendary Johnny Appleseed planted in the Midwest through the west of the United States. But it's happening so fast now that we want to keep a good eye on it. And there are two problems with it. One is there's a bunch of people that would like to see labeling of genetically modified food required. We had Proposition 37 in California last year. It would have required labeling of GMO foods in California. It went down. It lost by a small margin. A lot of money came in against this proposition. Money was 6-1 against labeling, and it still got 47% of the vote. It would have been a huge impact for the rest of the country. The FDA is in charge of labeling our food, and they don't want to label anything that's not known to be a big risk. There's a second problem which I had confused with the labeling problem, and this is an act that Congress passed last year, and it was passed into law by the President. It's called the Monsanto Protection Act by the people that don't like this law. It's called the Farmer Assurance Act by the people that got it passed. And there's a lot of arcane verbiage about it in Wikipedia, and my take on it is, if the crop is planted, and it was okay when it was planted, and then a judge rules that it's too risky to eat, the Secretary of Agriculture is directed to provide protection for the farmers, and it can continue to be grown and sold and eaten while the judicial process continues. It's a big controversy.